Can you all hear me? Something went wrong with the screen, so I want to check for sure. Let me know in the live chat if you can hear me, please. Thank you very much. All right, I'll wait. I see Victory in him is here. I see Tammy's here. I'm glad you're both here. The rest is here also. Please let yourself be known in the live chat. Okay, praise the Lord. All right, we're diving right into the topic of today. But first, before I do, I need to ask a question. How many of you saw my live stream called A Soul for a Soul? Let me know in the live chat. Whom of you saw my live stream called A Soul for a Soul? Let me know. Did you see my live stream called A Soul for a Soul? If you did, then you'll catch on better to the things about the teacher over here. I'll make a short recap, but I want to know ahead. How many of you seen that live stream, A Soul for a Soul? All right? Okay, good. So you saw the soul, a soul for a soul. Now, what is a soul for a soul? Let me explain to you briefly. A soul for a soul is a demonic exchange in which one human being gets ease at the expense of someone else or a multitude. It's an exchange of you suffer some dysfunction. Your dysfunction is relieved. It's not fixed nor restored. It's fixed. It's relieved. There's no fixing and no healing happening. So you relieve a dysfunction from someone, but at the same time, that dysfunction becomes an asset to cause dysfunction into others. That is a soul for a soul. And that's how the paranormal works. Because evil spirits need negativity. So they're not in the business of destroying negativity. They don't even have the ability to do that. So a soul for a soul is a demonic exchange. It's human beings making the exchange. But it's demonic because the way it operates, it's because it needs paranormal assistance to work. For example, a short example, you have a woman who suffered parental neglect, and because of that, she has a sexual dysfunction. She's horny all the time. Why? Because she considers sexual tension to be love. Now, one day, she really wants to cut out sleeping around because she doesn't want to get an STD, or she wants to save her reputation. So she goes to some witch doctor, she gets a charm, and what do you know? She finds a man, she gets engaged, she marries. Now she's a married woman. Now her reputation improved. But at the same time, her auntie gets cancer and she's about to die now. What happened? She had negative contention on her that haunted her. When she went to the witch doctor, what happened was the demons replaced the negative tension from her and they pushed it onto someone close to her, in this case her auntie. Her auntie also had open doors, and because her auntie had an open door, the negativity that was haunting this woman was transferred onto her, and now she had the negative tension, but it played out in a different way. With her, it was not that she became loose in the street sexually. With her, it was that her body began to break down. So in this case, the woman who was sexually loose due to parental abandonment, now she's a married woman living a family life. She's still not delivered. She still has mental issues, but she's relieved from her dysfunction. And at the same time, someone else is charged with the negativity that was haunting her. So the misfortune is replaced. That is what a soul for a soul means. Before I continue, is it clear to you, based on the short explanation and the short example I made, what a soul for a soul is? Let me know in the live chat because it's quite important to understand this before we continue. Do you understand this? Let me know in the live chat. I'll wait to get some answers. So Let me know. Do you understand it? Okay. Now, sorry for repeating the question. Sometimes the live chat is a bit later. Sometimes there's a delay of 5 or 10 seconds in the live chat. So, but okay, it's clear to you all. Now, this live stream is about conservative politics, or some would say conservatism. Now, conservative politics is part of conservatism. But let me say, and I explain to you, conservatism is a philosophy, it's a way of relating to life. Conservative politics is an expression of that way of relating to life. Now, I'm going to share my screen now with you, so hold on. Share the screen. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen, please. Thank you very much. Can you see it? Give me a yes if you can see it, please. Sometimes StreamYard is not working properly, and I don't want to be sharing a screen and none of you seen it. Can you see the screen? Mm. All right. Okay, let's begin. Conservatism is a cultural, social, and political philosophy. See that related to the ancient Greeks that seeks to promote and to preserve traditional social institutions and practices. Okay, what's the difference between conserve and preserve? If English is your native language, you don't need this explanation because you already know the difference between preserve and conserve. But English is not my native language. I had to learn it. And for many who also watch this live stream, English may not be the first language. And even some people with English as native language who don't know the exact difference. So let me explain briefly towards you. The difference between conserve and preserve. Hold on, let me just make this bigger for you. I'm just going to read this because it right explains it. Let us see the difference between preserve and conserve. When you conserve something, you ensure that you make use of it wisely. Hear that? Make use of it. You make sure it is not wasted. There is a suggestion that if you do not make careful use of it, then chances are it will be impossible to replace the commodity. During the summer, the government always tells us to conserve power and water. It's okay to waste them during the winter months, but not during the summer. When you conserve something, you don't wish to waste or deplete any of the available resources. You attempt to not change anything drastically. So that is mean when you conserve something. For example, the minister asked the people to insist to conserve water. So don't waste the water. The fast bowler conserved his energy by shortening his run up. So that means in sports, like if you're about to run, you keep some of your physical strength and then you use it on the last moment to win a race. During the summer, theater owners conserve energy by switching off the AC. So let's say electricity in a theater, and during the summer, when it's not that many people in the theater, you shut down some of the AC units so to not waste much of electricity. Okay, that's conserve. Preserve, okay, let's go here. Preserve, on the other hand, suggests that you make attempts to keep something as it is without making any changes. In other words, when you preserve something, you keep it intact. You keep it safe, protect it from danger. What's danger? Danger means anything that may cause change to what you want to keep the same way. For example, our government doesn't do a good job of preserving our monuments. Or we must make an effort to preserve our forests. Or this is a beautiful old house, we must preserve it. Okay, so now you can see the difference between conserve and preserve. Now let's go back to conservatism. So in conservatism, the public seeks to preserve traditional social institutions and practices. So there's certain human behavior they want to keep the same. So it's so what so con- to conserve means you make use of something properly. So conservatism actually means you are exploiting traditional human behavior. That's what it comes down to. That is what it comes down to. Why don't call it preservatism? They call it conservatism, not preservatism. Even though most of the behaviors focus on preserving, call it conservatism. Because why do you preserve something? Because you want to make use of it. So to conserve and preserve go hand in hand. Okay? Now let's read further. The central tenets of conservatism may vary in relation to the status quo in the culture and civilization in which it appears. In Western culture, conservatives, that is someone that adheres to conservatism, seeks to preserve a range of institutions such as organized religion, parliamentary government, and property rights. Conservatives tend to favor institutions and practices that guarantee stability and evolve gradually. So they're focused on what worked in history. So conservatives prefer historical stability. They look at the past and check what worked in the past, so we don't even have to invent the wheel again, so let's do it again today. Now look, if people in the past used to fish a certain way and they catch a lot of fish, and you are a fisherman today, then there's nothing wrong with looking at how did fishermen in previous centuries catch a lot of fish. Let me do that too, because how they did in the past worked. So to preserve a tradition or a behavior from the past that works and is beneficial, there's nothing wrong with that. Even liberals or left-wing people tend to do this. Okay, all human beings seek to preserve things from the past. Is there anything wrong with preserve something from the past? No. The question is, why do you want to preserve it? That's the question. Okay, let's continue. Adherents of conservatism often oppose progressivism and seek to return to traditional values. Thought different groups of conservatives may choose different traditional values to preserve. Okay, let's go further. The first established use of the term in a political context originated in 1818 with François René de Chateaubriand during the period of the Bourbon Restoration. What was the Bourbon Restoration? That was after the Napoleon era. The Bourbon dynasty was restored in France. The royal house of France was restored, the Bourbon dynasty. During the period of the Bourbon Restoration, they sought to roll back the policies of the French Revolution. Historically associated with right-wing politics, the term has since been used to describe a wide range of views. There is no single set of policies regarded as conservative because the meaning of conservatism depends on what is considered traditional in a given place and time. Conservative thought has varied considerably as it has adapted itself to existing traditions and national cultures. For example, some conservatives advocate for a greater economic intervention, while others advocate for a more laissez-faire, free market economic system. Thus, conservatives from different parts of the world, each upholding their respective traditions, may disagree on a wide range of issues. Edmund Burke, an 18th century politician who opposed the French Revolution but supported the American Revolution, is credited as one of the main theorists of conservatism in the 1790s. So the 1790s, there were those that endorsed the 12 colonies separating from Britain and becoming the United States, but there were those who opposed the French Revolution by overthrowing the Bourbon dynasty. So, so this guy, Edmund Burke, did not want to preserve British rule in North America, but he did want to preserve the kind of oppressive regime of the Bourbon dynasty in France. So as you can see here, it depends on what do they want to conserve and preserve. Now, I'm not going to go into all of this, but let's go over here. According to Michael Aldershot, to be conservative is to prefer the familiar to the unknown, to prefer the tried to the untried, facts to mystery, the actual to the possible, the limited to the unbounded, the near to the distant, the sufficient to the superabundant. Whoa! The sufficient to the superabundant. Hold on, hold on. Saints, do we see a problem over here? The sufficient to the superabundant, the convenient to the perfect, present lacter to utopian bliss. Okay, this is a bit old fashioned English, but who of you can see a problem in this worldview? How many of you can see a conflict in this worldview? Let me know in the live chat. I'll give you 1.5 minutes to answer. What is the conflict over here? I'll mute my mic for 1.5 minutes and I'll wait for your answers. If I get many answers quickly, I'll come back quicker. Well, 1.5 minutes. What is the conflict, the obvious problem with this attitude of life? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know now. All right, let me see. Some say black and white thinking, others says too deep for me. Some say not sure why it's either sufficient or superabundant. Okay, let me explain to you. To be conservative is to prefer the familiar to the unknown. Okay, familiar means something you're used to. Okay, so something you're used to doesn't have to be wrong. But what if you're used to being neglected? That means you're familiar with neglect. Being taken care of is unknown to you because you were always neglected. Does it mean now that you have to prefer to be neglected because you're familiar with that? To prefer the tried to the untried. So let's say now that um, in a community, husbands often beat their wives. So it's because the men don't want to be challenged. You never had anywhere in the history of that community where women actually negotiated with the men. So women negotiating with men is an untried. It hasn't been done before. So does it mean now that you have to be okay with women being beaten by their husbands instead of looking for harmony between the sexes? Fact to mystery. Well, this seems realistic, but fact, okay, something can be a fact, but just because it's a fact doesn't mean it's the truth. For example, it can be that many Chinese migrants end up in criminality. But does it automatically mean that Chinese people are more criminal by default? No. It's because the Chinese migrants are discriminated against. That's why they don't get an opportunity to get jobs. That's why they survive in a different way. So it may be a fact that in an area there are many Chinese migrants that become criminals. But does it mean automatically that a Chinese individual is more likely to become a criminal? No. So often facts can be twisted to make false beliefs about people. The actual to the possible. Hold on a minute. So um, let's say there are not enough houses in a country, and you have a lot of empty land over there. Why not build more cities? Oh, but if you build more cities, you're going to have more competition economically in the country, and well, it is possible to build more cities. Then you don't have any homelessness problem anymore. But hey, people are used to having homeless people around, so they used to look down on homeless people, feel good about themselves. If all the homeless people have houses now, we're going to look down upon. So it's possible to solve the homeless issue, but it's possible. But what we're doing now actually works. So let's stick to that. Okay, the limited to the unbounded. So it's all about boundaries, all about limiting. It's all about limits. The near to the distant. Okay, so what if you are a farmer and you need to sell your crops? Let's say the people nearby don't want to purchase your crops, but you have people in another country or across the sea willing to purchase your crops. Does that mean now you have to stick to your own people who let you go bankrupt? Okay? The sufficient to the superabundant. Hold on a minute. Didn't Jesus say, okay, hold on, let me close the door to my balcony very quickly. Hold on. Sorry for that. It was a motorcycle that make a lot of noise outside. But anyway, didn't Jesus tell us, I come that you may have life, life more abundantly, or life in abundance? So if Jesus came to bring life in abundance, why are they holding on to the sufficient? Only what's necessary. The convenient to the perfect. Perfect means when things actually work out well for everyone. So you don't care about actually making things better for everyone. You just want things to just be convenient, things to just flow smoothly. Present laughter to or utopian bliss. Utopian bliss simply means you're willing to contribute to a long-term happiness or long-term joy for the community. Okay, so what it comes down to is, I'm not going to read all of this, but you can read books about this in the library and all of that if you want. What it comes down to is that in conservatism, it's about preserving the old. It's all about using the old as a type of psychological security. That's what it comes down to. Now, so what is a conservative? What's the definition of it? But anyway, you have a conservative and just being conservative. Conservative means averse to change or innovation and holding traditional values. In a political context, favoring free enterprise, private ownership, and social traditional ideas. A noun, a person who's averse to change and holds traditional values. Then a person who favors free enterprise, private ownership, and socially traditional ideas. So it comes down to this. In conservatism, you have a system. You have a machine. The machine has parts. You, the human being, you're a part of the machine. And you are expected to comply with the machine. So the machine brings forth the ease everyone wants. In conservatism, the public wants ease. They want ease in daily life. And the way the ease works is everyone gives up, want to make things better, and just gets along with what's expected from them. So let's say now that, let's say you take, for example, a Buddhist society. And in this Buddhist society, children were often beaten. Now, why were children beaten? Because children are easy victims. Children can't fight back. So the public, the adults had ease because they would always take it out on the children. And parents even allowed other adults to take it out on their children too. Now, that is convenient to them. Nobody has to face any of their own psychological issues because they can take it out on the children. When the children older, they're told, hey, now you can do it to other children too. You're not a child anymore, now you can do it towards them. Now, if someone would come and say, you know what, guys, it may not be a good idea to hate children because you can get a lot of violence in the community later on. That individual will be too sad, hey, who asked for your opinion? Nobody asked for your input. Aren't you just a dishwasher? Okay, you're a dishwasher, wash the dishes, keep to yourself, shut your mouth, and only talk when you're spoken to. And when you're spoken to, only say what you want to hear. That is conservatism. You want to preserve the machine that works. Whether it's good or evil, bad or wrong, doesn't matter. So as a human being, you're not allowed to value yourself. And it's that, you know what, I'm out of this. Or you know what, we need to change, we need to improve. That's what conservatism comes down to. Now, there are people out there who identify as conservative and they're not ecstatic like this. They identify with being conservative because of certain values that conservatism espouses. Okay, but just because conservatism espouses certain traditional values doesn't mean that conservatism in itself is the right way to go. Now, for example, in ancient Rome, you have the optimates, or some would say optimales, and you had the populares. The populares were more the innovators who wanted the public to be well off. The optimates were more into preserving the violent hierarchy of Rome. And the optimates, which what people today call the conservatives or right wing, and the populares, which we today would call the left wing or the liberals, they were having a political dance in ancient Rome. When Rome became an empire in 27 BC, this continues. And the populares eventually came up with this thing called bread and circuses, as I talked about before in another live stream. So being conservative has nothing to do with being a believer or following Jesus. Some let you think that being conservative is all about preserving Christian values. That is not true. You have Buddhists who are conservatives, preserving the ancient hierarchies of Buddhism. You have devil worshippers who want to preserve ritual child abuse or ritual sexual violence. So just calling yourself conservative doesn't mean you're on the good side of history. No, it's not. And what I want to point out in this live stream is that in the West, you have this revival of conservatism disguised as a Christian revival. Well, let me say it like this. You have a lot of conservatives out there. And by the way, not all conservatives agree with one another. Again, being conservative depends on what is considered traditional and old school in your area. There are many conservatives out there in the Western world who want to go back to the dysfunctions of the past. But at the same time, they will point out, look at what the liberals are doing. You have grown men in strings twerking for children. This has to stop. And I saw videos like that, grown men twerking in front of children. And it really upset me to see things like this. And they will say, well, you need to be inclusive, don't judge, all of that's okay. But here's the thing, there are many liberals also getting fed up with the extreme liberalism that goes on today. And they call it out. The thing is, the difference between conservatism and liberalism is that liberalism also wants to preserve things, but liberalism is realistic enough to admit if something does not work, you need to admit it doesn't work and find a way to replace it. Now, liberals are not into solutions. They're also seeking relief, just like conservatives, but the liberals admit, okay, if something ain't working, then it doesn't work. Conservatives want to insist on making it work and they deny the collateral damage amongst the human population. Yes, TS, what you said is exactly true. Now, look, are conservatives bad people? No. There are some good people out there who consider themselves conservative. But the issue is they don't realize what conservatism really implies in the long run. I mean, look, if you see that today, sexual relationships are quite unstable and are quite embarrassing. Then people tell you, you know what, Rashid, in the 1950s and before, sexual relationships were far more stable. Haven't you noticed that people before the 1950s stayed married their whole lives? And didn't you notice that women before the 1950s dressed more feminine and were not that argumentative all the time? Have you noticed a lot of women today tend to be so into your face, arguing, bitching, fighting, acting narcissistic? Okay, it's true that today, due to due to extreme feminism, that a lot of women develop this bitchy attitude of always complaining all the time, and they never take any responsibility. That's female narcissism that's open into your face today. And because you have mainstream media as well as social media, you're confronted with it. So if you look at that and compare it to reports from the past, you may think, you know what, in the past things used to be better. Women used to be more feminine and more stable back then. Hold on. Who told you there was no female narcissism in the past? Are you kidding me? Listen, in the 1950s, you had no social media, you had no internet, and you had no you had mainstream media, but it wasn't into your face. So if was female narcissism, the women would more likely hide it. They could easily hide it, and because being a bitch was not celebrated, they would behave themselves. But does it mean that before the 1950s there were no female narcissists? Are you kidding me? Of course they were. Okay, so a female narcissist may decide to stay married to a man, but at the same time she keeps cheating on him, or she keeps, or maybe if she doesn't cheat on him, she begins to treat him like a piece of trash. Before the 1950s, when a child had bruises and people knew the child was being abused by the parents, they would just allow it to happen. Yes, children knew their place. The children kept their mouth shut, but the children were harmed. The children were not fully treated as human beings. That's why a lot of adults had issues. That's why smoking was so big. Why do you think smoking was so big before the 1950s? Because a lot of adults had childhood trauma that they were coping with. Why do you think that the drug epidemic happened? There's so many people being addicted to drugs. It is because of childhood trauma that's unprocessed. Why do you think there were so many people becoming alcoholics? Now you know they were coping. If so many adults are coping, then you need to admit something is done wrong over here. But A, conservatives will say children can't take care of themselves, so they have to shut their mouths and listen to those who can. Okay, but what if those who should take care of them are abusing them? Shouldn't we intervene? No, no, no. They can go against parental authority. The parent owns the child, can do with the child whatever the parent wants, because the parents want paying for the child, feeding the child. Okay, but if that child turns out completely dysfunctional, we have to deal with them as an adult. Are you willing to deal with someone who's completely messed up as an adult? No, you don't. So what happens then? You have children being completely neglected and abused. They become dysfunctional adults, and as dysfunctional adults, the community uh, blames them. And then some of them become so resentful that they become monsters, begin to harm the community in a form of mass shooters, mass killers, serial killers, or they become corrupt politicians that take it out in the community, or they become criminals. And then when the former victims are now monsters haunting the same community that neglected them, now the same community begins to cry out, oh, you see, that's why you need to beat children. That's why you need to have firm boundaries. Then none of these things would happen. But the liberal would look at it and say, hold on a minute. Why are adults hitting children? And why are you getting along with an adult hitting a child? Would that same adult hit another adult? No. So why is it okay to hit a child? And if you hit a child, of course the child's going to develop issues. So you guys expect children to keep their mouth shut and to allow anything to happen to them, but when they're adults, it's all on them. Of course, you're going to get monsters in your community exploding on you. So the liberal call things out. The liberal may not have a solution, but at least they call it out saying this needs to improve, this needs to change. The conservative becomes resentful because now the public has to face that they are unreliable, untrustworthy, and dysfunctional. And nobody wants to admit this about themselves, especially not about the community they're part of. The issue is liberals don't offer a solution, so they say, okay, so a lot of those children now are dysfunctional. Some are even sexually dysfunctional. So you know what? Let them live their alternative lifestyle. Let's celebrate their alternative lifestyle. And that went quite far today. And then you have conservatives saying, you see how so many people have alternative sexual lifestyles. You see that we don't how many broken families we have. It's true. In the past, there were less fatherless households. That's true. In the past, you had more household units, mother, father, and children in the household. Today, you have a lot of single moms. That's true. But hold on. Why do you have so many single moms out there? Can it be that now that people can escape abusive situations, it becomes obvious how neglectful the masses are? Look, if someone says we have too many single moms, okay, I agree with that. But if they say in the past it was better, okay, but how come it got worse then? And hold on, so you have a lot of single moms. That means a lot of men don't want to commit. In the past, you also had a lot of orphans. Children were abundant, but they were never talked about. So in the past, they abandoned children by dropping them in orphanages. Today, they just walk away from the children, and you have single moms or single dads. So it's the same escapism. In the past, they abandoned children one way. Today, they abandon them a different way. It's still child abandonment, but they do it a different way. So you're saying, well, at least in the past, everything was more at ease. So that means you prefer ease above solutions. So look, conservatism, I'm not talking about conservative people, I'm about conservatism, this ideology. It borders this psychological disorder right over here. Neophobia. How many of you heard of neophobia before? Yes, TS. What you said is absolutely true. Don't call them powers. They're not powers. They're strongholds. They don't have actual power. They only have tricks and violence. How many of you heard of neophobia before? Maybe it's your first time? Okay, then it's your first time. Okay, I'll wait for 40 seconds before I continue. All right. By the way, soon to rise. All this live stream, I'm going to give you a phone call, so please be available. Neophobia is an extreme or irrational fear or dislike of anything new or unfamiliar. But okay, let's go back to conservatism over here. Let's go back over there. I'm not making this up, okay? Let's look at this. To be conservative is prefer the familiar to the unknown, prefer the try to the untried, fact to mystery, the actual to the possible, the limited to the unbound, the near to the distant, sufficient to the superabundant, the convenient to the perfect, the present life to obtaining bliss, giving votes to the dead. Neophobia, extreme irrational fear or dislike of anything new or unfamiliar. Is being conservative automatically means that you suffer neophobia or you have this mental disorder? No. Am I saying that the conservatives are mentally disordered? No. There may be mentally disordered conservatives out there, but I'm not saying that if you're a conservative, you're automatically out of your mind. No, I'm not saying that. There are even some believers who are part of that camp. I'm just pointing out is that conservatism, this philosophy, is quite similar to this mental disorder, neophobia. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I'm not a licensed psychologist, but I am an anthropologist and I am a sociologist. I'm a social scientist. So, it's a normal fear. It's fear. And what did the Bible say? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a love, power, and a sound mind. So, neophobia is demonic. Why is it demonic? Because it's a mental disorder that makes you a portal for evil spirits. Because God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a love, power, and a sound mind. So if God don't give us a spirit of fear, that means neophobia, which is a fear disorder, is not from God. That means anything that looks similar to neophobia, you need to question it. So if you have many conservatives who claim that they want to preserve Christian values, hold on. Was Jesus a conservative? Question to you. Was Jesus a conservative? I'll give you 1.5 minutes to answer this. I will mute my mic. Was Jesus a conservative? Answer me. Let me know in the live chat. All right, you got a few answers already. What else the rest say? But look at this. What was conservative back then in the Roman Empire, in the province Judea? What was conservative was that you had a cosmomo- yet a cosmopolitan Greek culture that was forced on the masses. This cosmopolitan Greek culture included institutionalized pedophilia. You had the leaders of the Judeans in Judea that were sellouts getting along with this. You had King Herod, who led the Herodian dynasty. So Judea was a client kingdom. Herod invested a lot in the economy to appease Rome, and you have debt collectors and tax collectors haunting and harassing the public. And then you had the scribes and Pharisees and Sadducees making excuses and not doing anything about it because they were profiting off the same problems. So the public was expected to know their place and get along. And then you have this man, Yahushua or Yeshua, coming up. And he did not cause um, destruction, but he radically exposed the narcissistic violence of society, and he offered an alternative, and he was building his own economy. But he did it in such a way that nobody could blame him. He worked as a carpenter, he had his own house, he paid taxes, he saved money, and after he saved money, he gave up his house and he gathered disciples, began to travel around, establish his own economy. But from the economy established, he will still pay taxes. So the Roman government could not say, oh, he's a revolutionary that tries to cause trouble for us. No, he was just establishing his own economy because obviously the economy over there did not work properly. So Jesus was a revolutionary. Of course he was. But not a revolutionary in the sense that just went there to just riot and shut things down. Christ was replacing the bad with better. Most revolutionaries in history just take down what's bad, but they don't replace with better. So Christ was not conservative. He did not conserve, not preserve the satanic violence of society back then. The scribes and Pharisees and Sadducees did, together with the Apollo cult that ran the world. So Christ did conserve values from the Heavenly Father, but he did not conserve what society and the masses wanted. So if Christ was not what you would say in political terms a conservative, why are so many believers today insist on being conservative? You're not conserving what Christ told you to. You're conserving the traditions that your ancestors or the people of that country holds dear. Okay, if the traditions and social behaviors are beneficial, okay, then you can conserve and preserve them. There's nothing wrong with that. Christ told us to test all things or to prove all things and to retain the good. In the New Testament, it's written, prove all things, retain the good, or test all things and keep the good. So if you examine things and you keep what's beneficial and what's good, there's nothing wrong with that. So again, to hold on to some tradition from the past that's actually beneficial in the long term for the community, that doesn't cause much collateral damage, okay, we can support that. But to preserve something just because you identify with it, because you're not open to anything new, I'm sorry, but that's a disorder right over there. For example, when Obama was selected, or I mean elected as president of the United States, there were many conservatives bitching and complaining about it because the United States still then always had a European man at its head. Before independence, it were the governors coming all the way from England. After independence, it used to be people from the colonial elite that became the presidents, and now you have this man. He's a mixed black man because he has a white mom, so he's a mixed black man. This mixed African, he became president of the United States. It was a break with the conservative values. And you know what happened after Obama? The conservatives got their revenge. You had Trump coming up to restore the mistake of breaking the tradition, the continuation of white power in the United States. So, do you understand now that being a conservative depends on the location you're at? Chinese conservatives, listen, in the Chinese Empire during the Qin Dynasty, there was this tradition of cutting off toes of baby girls. Why is that when they would grow up, become grown women, they had difficulty walking away from their husbands. They would cut certain toes off of babies when they were girls. Why is that when they were grown women, they wouldn't cheat on their husbands because they had difficulty walking. Okay, but if a woman has difficulty walking because she's missing certain toes, that means she has a hard time becoming a mom too. Because as a mother, you need to be able to walk around because children are all over the place. After the Qin dynasty collapsed, and after the Japanese occupation of China, this whole cutting toes of baby girls was stopped. And the grown women who already had their toes cut off, they got, I don't know whether they got compensation or not, but people told them, please don't blame us for what happened to you, even though society was to blame. So conservatives in China try to preserve this, uh, try to preserve the deforming of baby feet of women so that women would be kept in check. So there was a misogynist element in Chinese culture that Chinese conservatives tried to preserve. And they thought we're doing the right thing, preserving our Chinese heritage. Today, you have Chinese conservatives who want to preserve the Chinese Communist Party, which is not communistic at all because there's nothing commune for everyone in it. So, Chinese conservatives in the 1920s are different than Chinese conservatives today because the values that they are preserving are a bit different, but it's still Chinese conservatives. So, what I'm pointing out is that in the Western world, the conservative camps, they claim they're preserving the Christian heritage. But is it really a Christian heritage you are preserving? For example, they are against abortion, which I agree with to be against that. But at the same time, if a child is born, none of them wanted provisions for the child. They say, oh, you have to look at the parents. They're the ones who had the baby, so they should look together. Look at the family. So hold on a minute. You don't want there to be welfare and all that. Everyone has to work hard, but you do want children to be born. But you don't want provision when a child is there. Do you see how this contradicts each other? And here's another thing. Conservatives tend to say you need to work hard, work hard, work hard. But hold on a minute. Isn't your worldview to hold on to the known and the familiar? What if someone is working hard to become a millionaire? And they become a millionaire, and because there's change in the community, now the social dynamic changes. Then conservatives become upset because you don't know your place. If people need to hold on to their place, that means they're not allowed to change neither for worse nor the better. That means how can you tell people to work hard? Say if you work hard, you get a good life, but at the same time, you don't want things to change, you want things to remain the same. So this work hard ethic is a contradiction of their own beliefs. Now liberals tell you work hard and you may get somewhere in life. So liberals are a bit more consistent. They say, look, as a human being, you matter too. So you have a right to influence the system if the system is not benefiting you. So work hard to influence the system. So liberals are a bit more consistent. Conservatives tell you work hard, but make sure you don't the system is not affected by you succeeding. So my question to you is: can conservatism be harmonized, or is conservatism compatible with the gospel? Let me know in the live chat. Based on the facts of conservatism and based on the truth of the gospel, can conservatism get along with the gospel? Let me know in the live chat. All right, I'll wait for some answers before I continue. All right, let me share the screen with you. I'm going to share something over here. All right. How many of you ever heard of Kansuk? Let me know in the live chat. How many of you ever heard of Kansuk or Kansuk? I just I'll wait for your answers. All right. British Empire, 1900s. All right, let me do this. Hold on. So this is the British Empire in. Hold on. I want to check if you notice something over here. So please be patient. Man, these images are small, but anyway, let me increase the image then. It's a low quality image, but just for the illustration's sake, I'm doing this. So, all right. I know if there is a better image over here. You know what? Let me try this one over here. So, okay, so you have the British Empire in how it was in 1900. All right. As you can see here, you had the Dominion of Canada. Instead of Kingdom of Canada, it's called Dominion of Canada. Dominion of New Zealand. Dominion of you had the Commonwealth of Australia. Dominion of South Africa. The so this is how it was. Now, okay. So there was the British Empire in the 1900s. Okay, look at this map. Let's go to this Kansuk thing. What do you notice about the Kansuk proposal and the British Empire in 1900? What do you notice about this proposed union and the previous British Empire? Let me know. I don't know if there's an image available that compares the two, but let me just check if there's any. No, there's not, unfortunately. Now, it comes down to this. This was the British Empire in 1900s. Australia, New Zealand, Britain, Ireland used to be part of the UK, and then you also had Canada over here. This was a kingdom, UK was a kingdom, Australia was a kingdom, New Zealand was a kingdom. All South Africa was a kingdom, India was an empire. But okay, let's fast forward today. Canada is still a kingdom, Australia is a federal kingdom, New Zealand is a unitary kingdom, and Britain is a confederate kingdom. They're all kingdoms still with the same royal house. So, but the issue is, this is actually a revival of the former British Empire. But what's the difference? Aha. Where are the African parts of it? Where are the South Asian parts or South American parts? The majority of the population in the candidates candidates are European, are from European ancestry, many British ancestry. So the UK wanted to leave the European Union so they can have their own British Empire 2.0. That's what they wanted. And this would be the constituent kingdoms of this empire, this confederate union. They had plans for it. They calculated everything. But here's the problem. They didn't actually put it on paper and acted it out. This plan existed long before Brexit to unify uh, Canada, or the Kingdom of Canada, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, the Commonwealth of Australia, and the Realm of New Zealand. For some reason, they refused to call New Zealand a kingdom, to unify them into one confederate union and to act together as a unity worldwide. But here's the problem of this. Where is it? Where are the accusations of racism? People saw through it immediately, and there were many European people from European ancestry who opposed it, especially left-wing people opposed, saying, "Hold on a minute, you just want a British Empire without any colored people, especially without blacks. That's actually what you want." And here's the thing: Australia was in favor of it, but suddenly, since January 2020, the Morrison government kind of backed down. I don't know if Australia is more open to it now, because the thing is, Britain. Hold on a minute. Britain over here has a lot of colored people that live there who have a British passport. If the consular union would be established on paper and in real life, that means all those colored people that live in Britain have free access to Australia. And also the colored people, the migrants in Canada with Canadian passport, also have the right to travel everywhere, work everywhere. Oh, and the Australians want to keep Australia as white as possible. So you know what? No, we have a bit of an issue with this cancer. We want the cancer, but we want to have some restrictions for Australia, you see, because Australia cannot handle all those non-white migrants. You see, it's going to too much for our country. Well, the Kansuk, one reason why it didn't play out yet, it's because there are European liberals who say, hold on, this goes too far. So you want to leave the EU without a plan and start your own confederacy worldwide. But here's the problem: Canada is in North America. So Canada is related to the United States because they have to deal with the United States on a regular basis. The United States has so many uh, ethnicities over there who travel back and forth. Canada, therefore, also is more involved with Latin America. Then you have the UK, who's more involved with Europe. So they have to be, most of the trade happens with the EU. For example, you can see it over here. In 2019, most of the exports of the UK went to the EU. Very few went to Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So what's the point? Most of your trade is with Europe. So Canada has most of its trade with North America, with Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. Australia and New Zealand have intense trade. But, and by the way, New Zealand was meant to be part of Australia, but the assembly in New Zealand in 1900 said to the British Parliament, please, we want to be our own kingdom. So they became it in 1907. So Australia and New Zealand are dealing mainly with Southeast Asia, China, Korea, Japan, and all the conflicts over there. So none of these nations have any direct ties to Africa. Ooh, okay. Now I see what this is going to. So if they form a confederacy, that means they'll have common border patrols, a common visa policy. So many people from within those four kingdoms can travel and migrate. Other people can't. So that means that Britain would not be part of the EU anymore, which is not anymore, will not be able to take a lot of migrants from Africa, Asia, and all of that, because Britain, when it was part of the EU, took a lot of migrants from South Asia, which used to be a British colony, and also from the former colonies in Africa. And one of the main reasons why a lot of people voted for Brexit to leave the EU was for migration, because they wanted to keep their streets white. So conservatives have this Kansuk fairy tale. You know why I call it a fairy tale? It is because, look, if you want to establish confederacy, put it on paper, inform your public, and actually do it. The only thing they did was bitch and complain about the EU having a referendum to leave the EU 2016, but they didn't make any steps. They should have said, you know what? We're going to leave the EU, and at the same time, we're going to unify with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and this is how we're going to do it. They had no plan. So Britain began to crash after it left the EU, and worldwide people lost their respect for Britain, due to the narcissistic attitude of a lot of the British public. So, and here's the problem: Australia and New Zealand are more trading with the EU than with Britain as a single country. So, this whole plot over here for Kansuk, um, this was the former Prime Minister of the UK, Theresa May, just over here. This, I don't know what her name is. This one from New Zealand. This one from Australia, I believe. They had this Kansuk plan, but here's the issue: they expect it to just come out of the ground. It seems like they just expected this empire to rise out of thin air without them making any efforts, because they think, oh, the British Empire dominated the seas. The British Empire made whole world speak English. British Empire established mainstream media, which eventually also led to social media. So the British Empire, people want it back. No, they don't. But the conservatives in Canada, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, they seriously thought that the world was waiting for a revival of not the British Empire. Well, no, people are not. So, why am I showing this Kansuk project? Because this Kansuk project became a fairy tale. I mean, if you guys had plans like this for a long time, where are the where are the scholarly papers advocating this union? Where are your policy proposals? And where is your draft constitution? The European Union has a constitution called the Lisbon Treaty. I did European Union studies as my first master degree. So I know all about the Lisbon Treaty. I even read the Lisbon Treaty even before I did my master's in European Union studies. The thing is, Britain has no written constitution. Britain is run based on tradition. New Zealand also has no written constitution. It's more some letter from the 1840s that they use to run that country. Australia and Canada have a firm constitution. Britain and New Zealand do not. So wouldn't it be possible? Wouldn't it be a thing to make an actual constitution for New Zealand and Britain finally? And wouldn't it be better to make a constitution for the whole Confederacy? No, they didn't do anything. And this is what I mean. Conservatism sometimes borders neophobia. So a lot of Anglo conservatives, if you can call them, they seriously thought that this would rise back from the ashes of history, just like that, without them making any efforts. It's 2022 now, and there is still no Kansuk constitution. There is no Kansuk constitution. There's no Kansuk parliament. There's no Kansuk Supreme Court. There's no Kansuk military. There's no Kansuk nationality. There's none of that. There's not even a Kansuk treaty in place. Wow. Look, I'm using this as an example. If you want to conserve something, please conserve and make sure what you conserve is worth it and what you conserve is applicable in the present. Now, I don't know if this, hold on, where can you see it? If this Kansuk fairy tale will ever become become a reality, I don't know. But if they actually go for it, they're going to have a lot of trouble. For example, which flag are they going to use? Which coat of arms? There are many proposals for flags. They can't even agree on that already. So, yep. Yep, they have their fairy tale, and the fairy tale ain't working. So understand this, saints. This is not just about this cancer thing. I'm using this as an example. There are more fairy tales out there. There are more fairy tales out there that conservatives hold on to. It's a fairy tale because it's not based on actual reality. And if they impute those things today, it may cause more trouble. Maybe this will be the flag. The stars of, I believe, New Zealand, the stars of Australia, the the leaf from Canada, and then you have the X from England. Well, I don't know. It's on them what they're going to do with it. I'm not even that much interested in this project unless I can use it for the tribe of Judah, of course. Then I'll be interested. If I can use it for the tribe of Judah to contribute to Judah's restoration, then I'll look into it. But apart from that, I'm not looking into this at all. If it will not contribute to the body of Christ in the long run, I will not look into it. So look, society has fairy tales. We do not ignore society's fairy tales. We subvert society's fairy tales in our favor as believers. You understand me? And the biblical time we're in is the restoration of Judah. So if it does not contribute to the restoration of Judah, it's garbage to me. If I can subvert this for the restoration of Judah, I'm all in on it. I'll even lead this cancer thing informally if it can be diverted for the tribe of Judah, which means restoration of Judah, which also will benefit believers worldwide. Do you understand me, saints? I'm radical. I'm far more radical than these creatures over here. Absolutely. If I could subvert this thing, I would join force with other believers, say, you know what, we need to take over this cancer movement and make sure we as believers run this so that we can make the best of it for the body of Christ. If any of you believers see any good thing that can come from this cancer union that we can subvert it for the body of Christ, let me know. I'm willing to team up with you. If you're from Britain, Australia, New Zealand, or Canada, and you think this cancer thing may benefit the body of Christ in the long run, please email me. Please team up with me because I'm willing to use my anthropological and sociological knowledge to use it for God's glory. Yes, it's a fairy tale, but if we can subvert this fairy tale in our favor, we must do it. That's how radical we should be, and I'm radical. For a sheet, I thought it was about the tribe of Judah. Okay, the tribe of Judah will restore to benefit everyone on the earth, including Gentile believers. So I don't care whether Judean or Gentile believer, you're a believer at the end of the day. Yes, the tribe of Judah is the main event happening right now, as prophesied. So this has to contribute. Oh, I forgot. They don't want Judeans in it. Wow. Well, they'll have to take Judeans then. So I don't care whether you are a Gentile believer or a Judean believer. If you think this thing can work, please contact me. And if there's any other fairy tale in your society that you have a sheet, maybe we can trick this fairy tale in our favor, please contact me. Please do. Amen. So they don't want Judeans in it. They want the racist fairy tale. Well, we're going to subvert it for the glory of Christ. Praise God. If you are a believer from European ancestry, please be more alert about your communities. I don't use the term white over here because that's a racial term. I use a European. If you are a European believer, please take more charge in your communities. Because either you do or these pagans come up with their fairy tales. And the pagan fairy tale of Kansuk already harmed a lot of white folks in Britain, of Europeans, a lot of the British population. And I was asking myself, where were the believers in Britain? Oh, some of those believers were also believing in this Brexit bullshit. No, 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 no. Believers. I'm talking to European believers now. Please take more charge of your communities. We need it. All right. So that was that about Kansuk. Enough about it. Understand now. The reason I made this live is to show you. Hold on. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Let me know. Because the connection is acting a bit weird over here. Let me know. Can you all hear me? All right. So understand this. Conservatism is a force on the earth right now. It's not a power, it's a force. And this force is not run by pagans. Now, again, conservatism is not compatible with the gospel, so we shouldn't be invested in it. But we have to use conservatism for the body of Christ. We can't ignore these forces out there. Just like we couldn't ignore liberalism, we shouldn't conserve the rise, the revival of conservatism. Just remember, a soul for a soul. In conservatism, you want to preserve the ease of the public, but you want a portion of the public to have misfortune. So you are exchanging the life and well-being of a portion of your own population just to make sure this ease. That's what you're doing. It's a soul for a soul. That's what sovereignty comes down to. Okay, so let me go very quickly. Blood. Hold on. Very quickly before I goes down this live stream, let me see where this is. Yes. I read this book. There were only two of them available in the whole Netherlands. I had to go to a university in Amsterdam called, I believe, the Free University of Amsterdam, I believe. But anyway, I had to go all the way to Amsterdam to a university. I had to become a member of the library to get this book because this book was not available anywhere else. So this book is kind of shadow banned. And it's just some quick, not a summary, but actually a quick overview of what the book is describing here. Blood sacrifice preserves the nation. The totem secret, that's the voodoo secret of society. The collective group taboo is the knowledge that society depends on the death of its own members at the hands of the group. The nation is the shared memory of blood sacrifice, periodically renewed. Those who share such memories often but not always share language, living space, or ethnicity. What they always share and cultivate is the memory of blood sacrifice. In total myth, the felt or settlement's nation is the memory of the lost sacrifice that counts for the living believers. So society wants you to be its believer. Blood sacrifice is a primitive notion. We define primitive as okay. Here it reflects on America. Bodily sacrifice is a totem core of American nationalism, as is maybe of all religion. This is quite disturbing. This is quite disturbing. This book, when you read it, it actually tells you, and look at this again. Our deepest secret, the collective group taboo, is knowledge that society depends on the death of these sacrificial victims at the hands of the group itself. The flag is the only proper casket covering in funerals with military honors. Why? The flag signifies the special condition of sacrifice, of lifting the killing taboo for the sake of the group. So it comes down to this. The masses have killing urges. They do. The masses want to offload. They are upset. They want to offload. But you can't have people offloading all the time. That's going to lead to bloodshed. It's going to lead to a very dark climate. So what they do is a, a demonic exchange. They agree to submit to some violent structure, and as a result, they want you to hand over your life, your sanity, and your well-being to preserve this structure, which is the totem god. So we say killing agreements hold the group together. Killing agreements. Wow. So if you are conservative and you want to conserve things from the past, that means you also want to conserve killing agreements. You want to preserve killing agreements. Oh, let's look at this. We say the knowledge that only the totem is the assigned group in a society may kill its own. Is what's taboo for group members. So group members are not allowed to do killing. only the assigned members are allowed to do the kills. When the totem goes to war, its grievance is not that its members have been killed or are in danger, but that the power besides itself has killed or threatens to kill them. For the group to cohere, acts of total violence against its own must be rendered unknowable. What is thus set apart is the essence of the sacred. So it comes down to this. The group doesn't want to face itself. The group has issues. So they want to act out these issues against people who can't fight back. But at the same time, they don't want it to be open knowledge that they're just dumping frustration, because that will make them look for what they are, cowards. So that's why in society they always blame the victim, or they always come with some mystical explanation why certain people are destroyed. A kill can be a war when sent the people to die off, can also be when a government makes political decisions that harm the economy and cause a lot of people to lose their jobs. And because a lot of people lose their jobs, they become homeless, some die of hunger on the streets, some enter criminality where they're killed or taken advantage of. A kill is simply the group harming its own members just because they say so. So, so that's why society always wants an enemy to say, it's not we want the blood of our sons. The enemy caused the sacrifice. Yeah, get out of here. Wars and unifying the fact endure must be costly. Not winning or losing, but serious bloodletting is the important fact in ritual success. Look at this. Serious bloodletting is an important factor. It's not so. What do you think is happening in Ukraine right now with Russia sending all the soldiers, a lot of Russian soldiers dying? What happens in the east of Ukraine now? Serious bloodletting. They want dead bodies. They want the damage. They want the trauma on the Russians and the Ukrainians. It's the trauma bonds them together. That's how society works. Why do you think the United States was in Afghanistan and Iraq? Bloodletting. They want the dead bodies to drop. It's the trauma of all those Americans dying that gives a trauma bond to this thing called the American nation or the American public. So now you understand. Books like these are often shadow banned because it shows you the condition of fallen mankind. Our deepest secret, the collective group taboo, is knowledge that society depends on the death of these sacrificial figures at the hands of the group itself. So, society doesn't want you to be happy on your own terms or on Jesus' terms. Society wants you to be miserable on their terms. Because for you to be happy without their consent makes them feel stupid. So they have to make you miserable so they can be relevant. That's society. Society is a narcissist, simple as that. And do you want to preserve and conserve that? Are you kidding me? Hell no. So please, I'm not bashing conservatives over here. If you are a conservative watching this YouTube live stream, I'm not bashing you nor looking down on you. I'm just pointing out the philosophy you're endorsing has serious issues with it. And I'm making this live stream to alert you about it. And look, I'm not promoting liberalism because liberals have a whole nother set of dysfunction with them. But why is it that you go between liberals and conservatives? Why can't you just be a follower of Christ and be realistic? That's what I want you to be. Yes, national sovereignty. National sovereignty is all about a group of people in an area having the right to hit you and hurt you. That's what it comes down to. National sovereignty has nothing to do with borders. Borders are invented to to decide till where a public is allowed to kill. For example, okay, let me open this map And then I'm really going to close off this video. This live stream is almost 1.5 hours, but okay, please bear with me. I need to make this bigger. Small picture again. I know why it keeps becoming like this, but okay. So let's say you were born in the United States. Okay. That means as long as you're in the United States, the American public has a right to turn on you and dismiss your life. If you are an American citizen or an American national and you move to Mexico, then the Mexicans have to watch out because you're not one of them. You're not a Mexican like them. But if you would forfeit your American nationality and become a Mexican national, then the Mexican public gets the right to turn on you. Sovereignty is all about which where do people have a right to turn on you and dismiss your life. The right to kill, the right to beat you, the right to hate you, the right to neglect you. That is what sovereignty means. We own you, so we can do to you what we want if we get upset. And nobody has the right to say anything to us. Not God. Nobody has the right to say anything to us. Not even the Heavenly Father, because we we the community, we have a right to discard your life. That's what sovereignty comes down to. And sovereignty done on a local scale is called privacy. So privacy and sovereignty are the same thing. Sovereignty is when this killing entitlement is done by a whole group, and privacy is when it's done by a small family. So now you know, if you are all for national sovereignty, know what you're agreeing with. If you promote national sovereignty, you want to be conservative, promoting national sovereignty, that you're actually promoting the public feeling entitled to narcissistically kill off their own. Who in the right mind agrees with this? If you're from New Zealand and you praise Britain for taking back control, for being sovereign again, then actually you're promoting British people hurting their own British people and getting away with it. That's what you're promoting. That okay? Let's say you're in New Zealand and suddenly some of your neighbors turn on you and they want to lynch you based on your conservative attitude towards national sovereignty. They have a right to do that because you agree with them having the right to discard your life. Why would you agree with something like that? National sovereignty is not compatible with the gospel because the earth is the Lord's. So for any population to say we own this area and we have a right to discard any life we want, I'm sorry, but that goes against God. Not even the satanic governments admit this. That's why, for example, if in a country there's genocide, other countries intervene. National sovereignty means that the public has the right to commit genocide and outsiders have to stand back as none of their business. I'm sorry, but how can you include it to something like that? Hey, but that's what conservatism is all about. The right to kill, the right to abuse, the right to beat people by a local population. That's what they're preserving. Why would you be in agreement with that? You shouldn't. But anyway, I'm at the end of this live stream now. If you have any questions about this topic, please let me know now. So don't get along with this demonic exchange called national sovereignty. Because if you agree with that, you're actually saying that you agree with others having the right to beat you, neglect you, rape you, hurt you, or abandon you. So, are there any questions? Let me know in the live chat, please. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's not only conservatives. We have this killing, 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 this killing, I would say, urge. Liberals have them too. All worldly communities have them. Okay, this question that you asked, why does Heavenly Father allow all this wickedness to continue? I've explained already in multiple videos and live streams. It comes down to this: God lets all play out so that everyone has proof throughout history why it's a stupid idea not to serve Him. That's why He's preserving the believers, but He let worldlings who insist on in error reap what they sow as proof why they're not reliable and why eventually they have to be deported to the lake of fire. That's why God is letting them expose themselves and play out themselves so that they can have no excuse later on. That's why. Okay, so what about the long-term effect of PTSD of returning soldiers? Here's the thing. When a soldier comes back from war, they get all the special honors. Why? Because once you go to war and you come back, you can clearly see, hold on a minute, this is a setup. But they don't want the veterans to expose the secret of fallen mankind, namely, namely that worldlings rely on victimizing defenseless people to be at ease. They don't want this vampiristic attitude of fallen mankind to be exposed. So when a soldier comes back, they're actually blackmailed with all those honors to shut their mouth and leave the public alone. That's why conservatives often give long prison sentences. Because once you go to prison and you come out, you realize, hold on a minute, why are people more willing to pay taxes and build prisons than to pay taxes and build homeless shelters? So that's why they do it. Conservatives love long prison sentences because once you go to prison and you come out, you will see things for what they are, and they don't want you as a witness. They make effort to discard you, but they don't make effort to reform you. That's society. Okay, someone asked, so is it safe to say I'm not Christian in traditional way? The term Christian has become a container term. Anyone can call themselves a Christian, but do you actually believe in Christ? You can say, I'm a believer, I follow Christ. And then say, oh, so you're Christian? Say, yeah, but I'm not the traditional type of Christian. Okay, you can do that. Victor and him ask, what's the best way to deal with openly and verbally mothers in public? You can just hint to them if God allows that it's not a wise thing they're doing. And if they refuse to take your hint, just walk away and pray for the children. Simple as that. Or report them if they go too far with the children. That's what you do. Anyway, um, just discuss with the Holy Spirit what to do the best in that situation. So I'm not bashing conservatives and I'm not looking down on them, just explaining that conservatism, that philosophy has a lot of dangerous errors in it. No human being should be comfortable with their native population having the right to discard them. But that's what you firmly believe in when you are into conservatism, that your own people have a right to discard you in any way they see fit. And you just have to take it. Don't agree with that, please. Don't. Well, anyway, thank you all for being here. Keep on agreeing with Christ, and I'll see you next time. Be at peace. Shalom.